time for the stories I ate. The stories I ate. The stories I ate. This month.
Off the hook, but the phone never rang. Beast on the beats, no claws, no fangs.
Hello and welcome to Stories I Ate This Month. I'm your host, Christine. I am recovering from illness today, so I'm wearing a sweatshirt. But I did put on lipstick and a scarf, so I am fancy for you. Yay! It's June. I wasn't paying attention for a second because I got sick, and then all of a sudden it was June 10th, and I was like, WTF? I read a lot this month. 3 books, and all with my eyes, except for the end of ACAFAST that I put on audiobook. Mostly with my eyes. And I watched stuff.
Off the hook, but the phone never rang.
The first book I finished this month was The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things by CAROLYN MACKLER. This was our Booksplosion book of the month. This month we were working with Bloomsbury. I really enjoyed this. I was expecting to enjoy it because I knew it was a contemporary. This book came out, I think, 15 years ago. It's about a plus-sized girl, and she's in this perfect family where her brother's this all-star athlete, and her mom's this famous psychologist, and her best friend just moved away for the year. She's dealing with a new relationship with a boy. She just feels lost. So CAROLYN MACKLER went in and modernized the story. Like, the references are updated for this new release of the paperback because she wrote a sequel, and it just came out, and it's called The Universe is Expanding and So Am I. I read the first chapter immediately when I finished, but then I had to stop because I had things to do. But like, I want to read this. I think I'll breeze right through it because this was such a quick read. I love the writing style. I think you'll really like it too if you haven't read it yet. I highly recommend it. I'm just really thrilled that we had it as our book of the month because I know a lot of people read it in school. I had never heard of this book. It was so good, and I'm just really excited to look at more of CAROLYN MACKLER's work. The first TV show I finished this month was 13 Reasons Why Season 2. I was so excited after Season 1 because they did an amazing job with that story. While Season 2, I enjoyed watching it because I do really like these characters. It was messy. There were a lot of different storylines dealing with a lot of different heavy things. Like in the first season, everything kind of built on each other very well. Each episode was someone's take. And I was expecting this season to be each episode someone's testifying, and it kind of was like that, but it wasn't because it didn't work as well. It was all over the place. The first season got an A+ from me. This one would get like a C+ from me. If you really loved the first season, I think you'll love the second season. Of course, there are all sorts of trigger warnings, so just beware of that before you go in to watch. I think now on Netflix, when you hit play, there's actually a pre-roll where they talk about all the trigger warnings. It's an intense show. It was very, very dark. I didn't do a video talking about it because there's so many heavy subjects that it was really hard to even process. There were little things in it that I really liked, but overall, it didn't have the same emotional impact as Season 1. As soon as I finished Season 2 of 13 Reasons Why, I ended up picking up The Earth, My Butt, and Other Round Things. When I started this, I got a little scared that it was going to go in a really dark place like we do in 13 Reasons Why, and I kind of just wanted something lighter. But CAROLYN has this really great balance of darkness and light. She maintains this lighter feeling, so you never get too down. I really enjoyed that aspect of this. But with 13 Reasons Why, I could have just had that first season, but I feel like I wanted to see the fallout of what happened. I think it was very important to see the consequences of everything that happened with Hannah. And I think that this series stands well as 2 seasons. I don't need any more. The next book that I have to show you that I finished this month is Brightly Burning by Alexa Dawn. I'm working with HMH this month, and they sent me an arc of Alexa's book. Alexa is also a YouTuber. She does AuthorTube. I went and looked her up after I met her at Y'all West, and she was awesome. And I just got caught up watching her videos. Go check her out. She's amazing. So Alexa's book, Brightly Burning, just came out in May. It is Jane Eyre in space. And I don't know the story of Jane Eyre. Now I do, because I read Brightly Burning, and then I went and watched PBS's miniseries Jane Eyre, because Natasha told me that was her favorite Jane Eyre. I'll get to that after. So, our lead character's name is Stella. She's 17, and she's an engineer on the ship she's living on. This takes place in a time where there is a fleet of ships orbiting Earth because Earth is in an ice age and it's unlivable at the moment, and they're waiting for it to be livable again so that we can go back down to Earth. We're at the point where the fleets are kind of running out of resources. The ship that Stella's on is kind of breaking down, and she's an engineer on the ship, so she's always working, and she doesn't like being an engineer even though she's good at it. She likes teaching, so she's applying to be a governess, and she gets accepted to be a governess on this ship called the Rochester. It's this schwanky private ship owned by this really wealthy family. Obviously she moves there, and the ship is like weirdly haunted. Like weird shit's going on in this ship. And she's teaching the girl there named Jessa. The captain, Hugo, is pretty dreamy and like there's something stirring there. The relationships were so much fun and like the haunted aspect of it was thrilling. Like I loved it. Highly recommend it if you like Jane Eyre because it was so interesting. First reading this and then actually watching Jane Eyre and seeing like where Alexa Donne pulled from Jane Eyre and like how she adapted it into space, and it was just so cool. I really like the story of Jane Eyre, and I didn't know, it just sounds so boring. The name Jane Eyre sounds boring. Her name's Stella Ainsley, which is a much cooler name than Jane Eyre, I'm sorry. Jane Eyre's name just doesn't sound cool. Maybe it was cool in the 1800s when Charlotte Bronte put it together and everything. But it sounded like Pride and Prejudice, which I'm not a huge fan of Pride and Prejudice. I know I've mentioned this before, that I really don't like Mr. Darcy. I find him to be a huge ass. He never really has a nice arc where he shows himself to be not an ass anymore, you know? He's just still kind of pompous and annoying at the end. But Mr. Rochester, or Hugo Fairfax in Brightly Burning, it's a different sort of arc. I really loved Hugo. And then seeing Mr. Rochester when I watched Jane Eyre, he's different than Mr. Rochester. Should I just start talking about Jane Eyre now? Brightly Burning was great. Definitely pick it up if any of that sounded great to you. So the Jane Eyre PBS special miniseries, it's just 2 episodes and they're both 2 hours. I thought I wasn't gonna like it because in the beginning it's kind of like, whoa, this was shot and directed kind of strangely. It's just like like, you'll see if you watch it, but then it kind of finds a groove and finds its way and settles into itself. When you start off watching Jane Eyre, I meet Mr. Rochester and I'm like, wow, he's an ass too. Why are all men from the 1800s big giant jerk faces? But Mr. Rochester arcs. You see him soften and change and be different, and you see Jane really shine, and I love that. I wish instead of reading Pride and Prejudice in my literature class, we read Jane Eyre, because she's so much cooler. By the end of this PBS special, I was in tears because I was like, oh, I was surprised by how into it I got, because I got into it. Okay, what other stores did I eat this month? Oh, Tully! I saw Tully at the beginning of the month. I really enjoyed Tully. It's this straightforward, unabashed view, story, window into this mother's life, into motherhood in general, and living with 3 young kids. You see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then other stuff also happens. And it was really good. The girl who plays Tully the nanny is the girl from San Junipero in Black Mirror, if you watch that. I spent the whole movie trying to figure out what I knew her from because I knew her. I'd give it an A-. It's a perspective of motherhood that I haven't seen on film before, and I really enjoyed and appreciated seeing it. I rewatched Thor Ragnarok with Taika, the director's commentary. Now, I think commentaries are way better when there are 2 people to have a dialogue with, and Taika was just Taika, and sometimes he brought in like his 4-year-old, 5-year-old daughter, and she would just say random stuff, and they'd have weird conversations for like 3 minutes. It wasn't the best commentary, and I'm sorry, I love Taika, and I love Thor Ragnarok. I would have rather just rewatched Thor Ragnarok. Commentaries I love include the Twilight commentary with Arpad, Kristen, and Catherine Hardwicke. That is gold, baby. I love the Titanic commentary. I think it's with James Cameron and the producer, I want to say. That was a fascinating commentary. I can't remember any other ones at this time. This wasn't my favorite. I'm gonna give it a C-. He was just blabbering on about random stuff. I think I learned like maybe 1 or 2 interesting facts while I was watching. It was just a bunch of like boo hockey. I watched another episode of Black Mirror this month, Shut Up and Dance, which is one that a lot of you recommended to me in the comments. Unfortunately, like I guess the whole twist and plot within the first minute, and that really put a damper on it for me, because it was real. If I guess the plot in the first minute, then it ruins it for me, because I'm like, oh, I knew all this. I knew it, which was such a bummer. So I have to give Shut Up and Dance a C-. My favorite still stands as the Starfleet one. I went and saw Isle of Dogs this month, which was such a different movie, and it was so fun and clever and weird. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure what to say. It's been like too long since I saw it, because I saw it at the beginning of May. But I know I enjoyed it, and I know I thought it was weird. There's so many actors in it that are really well known, like Bryan Cranston and Jeff Goldblum and Scarlett Johansson. It's only about like an hour and a half. I think it was an hour 20 minutes. It was good. It was clever and very stylized. The next thing I've been watching this month, and this has not been completed, but I have to talk about it because I incessantly have talked about Westworld. And Westworld Season 2 is on the air right now. I don't know if I'm going to do a whole video about it until I rewatch the entire series, because I've been watching it week to week. And last time I watched Season 1 all in one go. So it was a completely different experience. Season 2 is definitely not as honed as season 1, in my opinion, so far. I don't know, because we have 3 episodes left in the season. Everything's gonna start coming together, but there are so many different storylines going on in season 2. It's like mind-boggling. I think I will end up eventually doing a video about this, so I won't talk about it in so much detail, but it's on. I want you to know it's on, and you should watch it. There are 7 episodes out tonight. It's episode 8. So there will be 8 out by the time this goes up. I just love this show so much. The next thing I watched this month was Spider-Man 2. It was my first time watching Spider-Man 2 in like 5 years. I've seen Spider-Man 2 so many times, but it's been a long time since the last time. I loved it so much. Growing up, it was just my favorite superhero movie ever. And now that I've seen all these Marvel movies, going back to watch Spider-Man was such an interesting experience, because Spider-Man's like the classic, great superhero movie. And then we had Iron Man come along and turned all these classic superhero tropes and sayings on their head. And then Marvel continued from there to throw our old expectations of superheroes out the window and put in all this humor. And I love all that. I still love Spider-Man 2, but watching again, I see it in a completely different light. My favorite Spider-Man now, I can say with confidence, is Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Spider-Man 2. So Spider-Man 2, I mean, it gets an A. It's a great movie. But I'm just saying that Spider-Man Homecoming is my favorite. The next movie I saw was Solo. This was such a controversial upcoming film. Everyone's like, oh my god, it's gonna suck. And man, I loved this movie. I had so much fun. When it comes down to it, it was about Han and his relationship with Chewie, and I loved that. And there's a heist story. This is gonna sound ridiculous. At my core, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I enjoy the Star Wars movies, the new ones especially, but I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, and this is my favorite Star Wars movie. I've enjoyed this more than I've enjoyed any of the other movies. Like, I did really enjoy the new Star Wars, The Force Awakens and stuff, but there were moments in there where I was like, oh, when's this scene gonna be over? I don't like all the fighting and stuff in space. I don't know why I can't, like, get on board with those space fight scenes. There's too much fighting and not enough character stuff. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion, but I loved Solo. I thought it was so much fun. It's all about the character dynamics, and that's what I'm all about. And I love a good heist. And this was so much fun. And they set it up to be more than one film, so I'm sure they're planning at least 1, if not 2. I mean, their thing is trilogy, so I'm thinking they probably have 2 more stories in line here. I'm so down to see more Donald Glover as Lando and Chewie and Han's backstory. Like, suddenly I care about Chewie and Han so much more. I watched the original Star Wars movies just in the past 4 years for the first time ever. And I just couldn't understand how anyone cared so much about it, because we never really learned much about the characters. We don't have that many moments where they just kind of interact with each other, you know? Now, I want to go rewatch the original trilogy because I care so much more about Chewie and Han. And I feel like I understand them more, and I understand where they came from. And I need that stuff to really put roots into a series. I guess if I'd grown up watching it, it'd be different, you know, if I had that nostalgia factor, but I don't. Han Solo gets an A from me. I also loved having Emilia Clarke in this film. I loved everyone. I thought everyone was great, and I'm excited to see more. The next book I finished this month was a novella, and that is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. I actually did a whole video specifically talking about my feelings on A Court of Frost and Starlight, so I'm just gonna put a link in the description and ask you to go check that out if you're interested, because I'd love to discuss it with you over there. The next thing I watched this month was Ali Wong's new comedy special, A Hard Knock Wife. I love Ali Wong. The first I saw of her, I don't know, I think this is her first like televised comedy special, was Baby Cobra last year, and it was amazing. I was in hysterics the entire time, and same thing this time. I loved it. It was fantastic. She's fantastic. Like, I want to see her live. She's great. I laughed so much during that hour. I wish there were more. A+ to Ali Wong, A Hard Knock Wife. And the last thing I watched this month, wow, I feel like I didn't watch much TV this month, even though I definitely have been watching TV. Watched the season premiere of The Bold Type, which I wasn't thrilled with. All of a sudden it felt like a freeform show, the way it was shot and edited, and a lot of the dialogue was really on the nose. I'm hoping that this doesn't set the stage for the entire season. Although I am reviewing 1 episode of The Bold Type season 2, but The Bold Type season 1 was everything, and I was just disappointed watching that. Was anyone feeling the same? Did anyone feel that? The last movie I saw was Ocean's 8. I was so excited for Ocean's 8. I love Ocean's 11, and I've watched Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13. So I saw it last night. You know, it was good, and the cast was great, and all the stuff that happened was great, but the movie was good because the heist wasn't great. You know, like, they didn't give them a complex enough heist. The boys get this complex, super cool, intricate heist, and the women's heist was like, it just felt so simple, and I wanted more. I wanted more stuff thrown in their way. It's a shame because The cast was great. Everything that happened was so good. So the movie is good. Like, it's so much fun. But it needed more to be great. And I'm just disappointed that it didn't get it. You know? Like, why didn't they write a more complex heist? I can't help but feel that they were women, so that they didn't give them an extremely complex heist. That they were women, so they were robbing jewels. You know, it didn't have that, like, oh shit factor that you have when you watch Ocean's 11. And I was, where is it? These women are fantastic, and they're so smart, and they're so on top of their shit. Why you give them this not as complex heist situation? Why are you not throwing more obstacles in their way? Those are all the stories I ate this month. I watched and read a lot of good stuff that really left me thinking about them more afterward, and well, that's a great sign. That means you're doing something right. I'd love to know what your favorite thing was that you watched this month, or any of your thoughts and feelings on anything that I talked about. I'd love to hear. My favorite story this month, probably Westworld. Nothing is above Westworld in my brain right now. It's everything to me. My name's Christine. I make videos every Tuesday. If you click the bell down below, you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. I'm at XTeenMay on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow me over there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye!